everybody? Welcome in to another episode of the NFL Seekers podcast. Today, we're going to be previewing and predicting week 17 of the NFL season. Hopefully, you guys made it to your fantasy championships because we're here. It's fantasy championship week. So, we're going to try to provide you guys as much information as possible to get you guys the W's, to get you guys starting the right people. And both of us are feeling a little bit sick, so bear with us. Not gonna lie, the cold weather is definitely kicking us both in the butt. But how are you, Josh?
It's the NFL Seekers Sick Pod, and I got some nice hot tea with a Oh Happy Day mug. So I'm doing good because I'm excited to pod and I like tea. So we're rolling.
Beautiful, beautiful. Seems like a chill day over at the Stores household, and we'll start it off. We got a lot of games to preview. We'll start it off with the Thursday night showdown. We've got Trevor Siemian going into Cleveland and facing off against Joe Flacco's Browns. The Browns are 7.5 point favorites, and honestly, for fantasy, like this is a really hard game to kind of predict and break down and make start sit decisions for. I feel like these are two top defenses in the NFL, as we've been saying all season. It's what two, top three defenses. I know the Jets didn't look like it last week against the Commanders. That's for sure. Their defense was a little bit exposed, but I know the Browns defense for a fact will give Trevor Siemian a lot of problems. So it does kind of scare me for Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson's kind of just fantasy outlooks this week. And on the other side, even Amari Cooper, David Njoku, Joe Flacco, they've all been like the hottest players in the NFL, but you have to be somewhat scared of them against the Jets. I don't know if you could start Joe Flacco in fantasy. And yeah, I don't know. I just feel like this game could be low scoring and kind of screw some fantasy owners over. How do you think it goes?
The only reason I'm going to say there's going to be points is because they're going to push the ball down the field. There's going to be a fair amount of interceptions. If you're betting on interceptions in this game, take the over because both of these quarterbacks are going to throw an interception. It's just like inevitable. But I'm feeling kind of confident in a way. It's a primetime game. It's Joe Flacco's revenge game versus the Jets, and he's shown that he's not afraid to push the ball down the field versus a good defense. So you know what? In fact, I am feeling a little bit more confident in Amari Cooper this week. He's going to be pushing the ball down the field. One, two interceptions. Joe Flacco each week is shaking it off. He's gone for 300 yards in almost every single start he's had, and he's been throwing touchdowns. So David Njoku, Amari Cooper, in my opinion, obviously they're going against a top defense. Amari Cooper is going to be going against Sauce Gardner, but I believe he's going to get his. So I'm actually feeling somewhat confident. But on the Jet side of the ball, I don't know. I feel like they're going to get down early, and that might force Trevor Siemian to pass. So, he showed that he's not afraid to dump the ball down to Breece Hall. So I think Breece Hall's outlook looks pretty good, but I am a little scared of Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, 16 targets for Breece Hall last week is a godsend for anyone that has him in their championship. So you're kind of backed into starting all of these stars for these two teams. You kind of have to start Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. I mean, Garrett Wilson is, if you have a lot of good receivers, I could definitely bench Garrett Wilson in this one. But other than that, Breece Hall is a start. And then for the Browns, you do have to start Amari Cooper and David Njoku. Just they've been playing too good. You have to ride the flames. Joe Flacco is a little bit scarier, like you said. He will throw some picks in this one. I know that for a fact, and he's gonna need the touchdowns for sure to get that production. So that one is a little bit scary. I don't know if I'm starting that, but I guess we get fantasy out of the way, and I am gonna pick the Browns to win this one. I do think that they're just the better overall team. They might be like the hottest team in football right now, and Flacco just keeps gaining more and more confidence each week. He's out there just balling. He's elite Flacco right now. So I'm gonna go with Flacco in the revenge game.
Yeah, you said that and summed it up exactly how I would have said it. The Browns are overall a better football team. They're going to the Browns defense is going to make the Jets offense uncomfortable enough to where that should be the difference. And I think the Browns defense is going to put them in a lot of good field possession, to where the offense is going to have a lot of easy, it's they're not going to have to go far. That's what I'm going to say. And I think there'll be a fair amount of turnovers for the Jets. And so, yeah, I'm riding with Flacco. He's playing too good of football right now to lose, and this Browns team is hot.
All right, well, let's go on to the Saturday game. I'm really excited to talk about this Saturday night game, one of the better games of the week for sure. The 11-4 Lions are going to go into Dallas and play the 10-5 Cowboys, who are 6 point home favorites. This one's going to be Saturday night. This is going to have a lot of fantasy football implications as well. You got Jahmyr Gibbs, CeeDee Lamb, you got Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta. a lot of stars on this one. I didn't say Tony Pollard for a reason. I think this is a terrible, terrible matchup for Tony Pollard, who's been on a tear of terrible games. He is on a cold streak for sure. So be very scared of Pollard. If you are backed into starting Pollard, I'm just going to say it right now. It's a terrible, terrible matchup. The Lions are the number one or number two defense against the run, and they don't allow anything against the run. So this is a bad matchup for Pollard. I would go away from him if I could. But yeah, this game's interesting. The Lions are they're starting to get hot again. They're starting to get better, but I'm still really scared of that secondary. That Lions secondary is a mess. So I do just kind of see CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott of all people just tearing through that secondary, and that's kind of the difference in this one. I do think that I'll get my pick out of the way. I do think the Cowboys take this one at home in a big NFC matchup just because that Lions secondary allows way too much, and CD is going to have a big, big game. Take his over.
This is going to be a fun game, and from a fantasy implications, I'm starting everyone. I think this might be one of our higher scoring games of the week. I think both sides of the offense, it's pretty. You're starting their stars, and so I mean, for the Cowboys, it's Jake Ferguson, it's CeeDee Lamb, and you're feeling confident in. And even I think this is a Brandon Cooks game, so I'm starting those three, and I'm feeling actually really confident in that because I think they're going to be airing out the ball a lot. And then on the Lions side of the ball, I think you're starting everyone too. They got a lot of stars on that offense. Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery are always going to get theirs. They've been absolutely electric this week. Obviously, it's going to be against a kind of a decent, Cowboys defense, but a Cowboys defense that's proven that you can run and you can put up points against them. So I'm starting those two running backs. Obviously, Sam Laporte is a lock. Obviously, Amon-Ra St. Brown's a lock. And, these guys should put up some serious fantasy points. So if you're in the fantasy championship, then you have someone on these two teams, which most people who are in the fantasy championship probably have like CeeDee Lamb or Jahmyr Gibbs. You're going to be putting up points, and this one's going to be fun. And I'll get my pick out of the way. I'm going to be riding with the Lions. I think this feels like a game the Lions are going to win. I think Dan Campbell's going to go out there, and I think he's going to outcoach McCarthy, and I'm feeling confident in that pick.
Yeah, it's not a bad pick at all. The Lions are kind of playing better football right now. The Cowboys coming off some bad football. I am going to take the Cowboys to kind of bounce back at home, though. I just see this Cowboys team being. I mean, maybe the home field advantage is the tiebreaker here, but I just see the Cowboys team being more motivated in this one. But it is going to be a really, really fun game to watch on Saturday night. And I don't really think there's anything else we need to cover on this one. You're starting Dak Prescott, obviously. Are you starting Jared Goff?
I think you could start Jared Goff, and I think that would be a totally fine play, depending on who your quarterback's, situation is. But yeah, I think Jared Goff has proven that he is a QB1, and you can start him week to week.
Yeah, if you can kind of expect the Lions to have a rougher day on the ground, so maybe Jared Goff will be throwing some more touchdowns in this one. So I do like that start, and we'll go on to the next one. In my opinion, the game of the week right here. The 11-4 Dolphins are going to go into Baltimore and play the 12-3 Ravens, who are 3.5 point home favorites. Why is this game at 11? First of all, on Sunday, that makes zero sense. All the stakes on the road in this game. The winner of this game gets first seed in the AFC, essentially. The winner of this game gets MVP, essentially. No one's really talking about it. Like the winner of this game, Tua or Lamar, will probably almost 100% certainly win MVP, barring a disaster. I really don't think that Christian McCaffrey will realistically win it. He's a lock to win Offensive Player of the Year. But it's going to be one of these two guys. And if Tua goes in there into Baltimore and beats Lamar, he's going to win MVP. So this is a really big matchup with all the stakes in the world on the line, and it's hard to pick. I'll let you talk about
Yeah, this one's going to be really fun. I mean, I'm really excited to see how Mike McDonald game
it.
plan against Mike McDaniel's offense with Tua. Jalen Waddle is out, right? Yeah, so I mean it's going to be Tua to Tyreek. That's one less thing that the Ravens have to worry about is Waddle. So I mean, I really think, Mike McDonald's going to have a hell of a game plan. What he just did to the 49ers was absolutely electric. And I think that just kind of solidified him a head coaching candidacy this offseason. So shout out to Mike McDonald. He'll probably be a head coach for a team. And I don't doubt that he will have a fantastic game plan for these Dolphins. I think he's going to make Tua uncomfortable. I think they're smart enough to double Tyreek Hill, always have constant help on him. And then it ultimately comes down to the Dolphins running backs. And I just feel confident in the Ravens run D to stop them. So I'm ultimately going to be riding with the Ravens. Fantasy in this game is kind of interesting to me. I don't know. I mean, obviously, you're starting Tyreek Hill. You have to. You have no choice. Obviously, you're starting on the other side of the ball, Lamar. Um, you're starting. I think you're starting Isaiah Likely, and I think you're feeling confident in that too. Kind of. I'm sorry. I'm kind of flip flopping back and forth, but I kind of feel like this is going to be a really good defensive game in a stance. What's your feeling on that? I feel like it's going to be lower scoring than we expect.
Oh, 100%. The way that Vic Fangio and Jalen Ramsey have the Dolphins defense playing, it's going to be one of those like, unexpected low scoring games, kind of like the Dolphins Cowboys last week. I think it'll kind of end 22-20 around that score, like the Cowboys game last week. So you're right. You kind of have to limit your expectations for your fantasy options like Tyreek Hill for sure. The Ravens, as we saw against the Niners, they can really stop you on defense. They have some stars that can get takeaways. So yeah, I do agree in that sense. And for fantasy, I do think Zay Flowers is a start. He looked really good in the intermediate game last week. He got a lot of targets. So hopefully they keep that up. And I think Zay Flowers, you have to start this week. With all the electricity, he kind of helped you get there into your championship. I would start the fun rookie in your championship. I really would. So I think him, Likely, Lamar are all starts. I'm not really messing with anyone else. I'm dropping Odell at this point. And for the Dolphins, you mentioned Tua and Tyreek, but I do think that Raheem Mostert's obviously a must start. I don't know about Achan. Achan's a little bit scarier in this one. Achan's kind of like a dart throw, but yeah, I am going to pick the Ravens. They're the best team in football right now. They're at home. No Waddle in this one. I think that's kind of the tiebreaker. It's a really close matchup.
Yeah, lock it in. This is one you don't have to watch because we agreed. So lock it in the Ravens. It should be a pretty fun low scoring game.
Yeah, don't watch these first few games. We'll get on to the next one. The 7-8 Saints are going to go into Tampa and play the 8-7 Buccaneers for the NFC South. The Buccaneers are 2.5 point favorites, and this is definitely going to be a squeaker. This is going to be a really close one. But how can you not get excited and just glow when you talk about the Buccaneers, what they've been doing this year, how they've been winning? Baker Mayfield has been playing some really good football. Shout out to Dave Canales who came over from Seattle, and this is his first year as offensive coordinator. He's really worked perfectly with Baker. So I really love this Buccaneers team, what they're doing. Mike Evans is making his Hall of Fame case this year. Rashad White is like a top five running back. Their defense has been playing stout. And I mean, the Saints aren't playing bad football at all. Derek Carr is looking a little bit more comfortable, a little bit better. They do need to implement Alvin Kamara a lot more than last week if they have any chance of wanting to win this game in Tampa. They're going to need a lot of points because the Buccaneers have been kind of a good offense recently. So I don't know. How do you see this one going?
Buccaneers are just a good football team, man. And it's time to get serious about them because they are a lethal football team and they have a lot more stars than anyone really realizes. And they're all kind of clicking. I mean, the coaching is phenomenal. Everything's kind of phenomenal right now with the Bucks, and I'm kind of left speechless. I definitely didn't think they'd be this good, and they've just, outperformed my expectations tenfold. So I'm obviously going to be riding with my Baker Mayfield Bucks, and I'm feeling super confident in that. They're an electric football team, and I think Mike Evans is going to get his. It's his Marshawn Lattimore game. He hates the Saints. So I think Mike Evans is going to go off. Rashad White is a must start week in, week out. He's going to be absolutely electric. And then on the other side of the ball, hopefully Derek Carr can get Chris Olave and Alvin Kamara involved because those are your two players. If you're wanting to win a game, you got to get your stars involved, and the Saints have got to figure out how to do that. So
And Mike Evans owners, Merry Christmas, Happy Birthday, whatever you want to call it, because Marshawn Lattimore is not playing in this one, so you don't even have to worry about that whole beef. You just have Mike Evans playing some free football. He's gonna at least come down with one touchdown in this one for sure. So that's pretty big. No, Marshawn Lattimore is a huge kind of bump for the Buccaneers, and that's rough for that Saints defense. So yeah, I am gonna pick the Bucks as well. We've been lighting up talking about this team all year. They're really fun, and I'm going to continue it. And yeah, like you said in fantasy, you kind of ride the flames. In our co-manager league, we're starting Baker to kind of stack with Rashad White, and hopefully he wins this championship, man. I think he can put up some points at home in this matchup, but even against a good defense, I think that it'll be higher scoring than most NFC South matchups. So obviously you start Mike Evans and you target Godwin if you want the targets. And then for the Saints, it's just Kamara and Chris Olave.
yeah, should be a pretty fun one. But we're riding with Baker Mayfield and the Bucks, and let's keep this train going for Baker. Love it.
All right, I'm interested to go into this next one because I honestly don't know. I feel like we might split on this one. The 7-8 Raiders are going to go into Indy and play the 8-7 Colts, who are 3.5 point favorites, and that's a generous line because this is a really close game. The Colts are coming off a whooping against the Falcons. I know they didn't have Michael Pittman, and clearly that meant a lot to their team. If Michael Pittman is playing in this one, it's going to be a lot closer of a game, and they're a lot better of a football team with him in there. So this will make it close. We saw what the Raiders did to the Chiefs last week. Their defense just wants to murder you. Antonio Pierce has them playing with their whole heads on fire. It's crazy. It's really fun to watch the Raiders. I love watching the Raiders right now and what Antonio Pierce is doing, and he rejuvenated Jack Jones. It's really fun stuff. So I'm really excited for this game, and don't be surprised if the Raiders go in there and have a domination with that defense. But it could also be a really close game. I don't know. It's going to be a close one.
Yeah, this is one that I left blank in the notes because I didn't know who to pick. Um, one side of the ball makes me want to pick Antonio Pierce. After that, freaking dominant win on Christmas versus the Chiefs, and then the other side wants me to pick the Colts because I feel like they are overall the better football team. But and I feel like you just got to rely on the Raiders so much to their defense to put up points. And I kind of feel like I know where you're going to go on this one. So, I think I will split it with you. I am going to pick the Colts. I think they are the better football team. Even though these Raiders are playing so electric and so tough, and this defense just scares the hell out of me right now with Antonio Pierce and Max Crosby and Jack Jones. They're just a defense you do not want to play. They've proven these last few weeks that they can shut you down. I mean, they can literally win with their defense. They don't even need Aiden O'Connell throwing a pass for 3 quarters or completing a pass to win. So as I'm saying this, I'm kind of talking myself out of it, but I am going to ride with the Colts. I do think that they will get it done. I think Gardner Minshew will have kind of a bounce back game. I think he needs one, and these Colts are desperate for a win. So I'm going to stick with them, and I don't feel confident in saying that.
Yeah, I mean the Colts being at home is kind of the tiebreaker in this one. That's kind of a coin flip anyway. I will go with the Raiders. They've kind of been my team over the last few weeks. I've really been liking what I've been seeing from Antonio Pierce. They're hot and they're playing just nasty football on defense. I do expect them to maybe score on defense, definitely create some turnovers. I'm definitely considering starting the Raiders defense in my big matchup. So yeah, I don't know. I am going to pick the Raiders. Not too confident about it. I just see them going in there with that same mentality they went into Kansas City with, and they're just going to keep playing like dogs with rabies.
Yeah, it was hard to pick against them in this one. And then I mean from the fantasy implications, it's kind of hard to really feel confident in anyone on offense. I feel like this is going to be an ultimately a really low scoring game. Um, I mean, so what are we doing? What are we doing from a fantasy implications? Because I don't feel confident in really anyone.
Yeah, something kind of fun. It actually kind of helps my case with the Raiders even more. Zamir White has been playing really good football. So Josh Jacobs is going to come back in this one, and the Raiders are going to have a pretty good running back duo to kind of go against Zach Moss and Jonathan Taylor. So I think Zamir White and Josh Jacobs will kind of have a good 1-2 punch going forward here. And I do think you still start Josh Jacobs with limited expectations because he will be splitting with Zamir White, and it's his first game back. I think that's the only start for the Raiders. Devontae Adams, man, he's so scary with them not completing a pass after the first quarter last week. You start Devontae Adams, but it's scary. At least you're in Indy. They kind of have been a pass funnel defense, so that's good. Aiden O'Connell will be better in this one. And then for the Colts, you obviously start Michael Pittman and Jonathan Taylor. I don't really think you want to mess with the borderline options though.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And yeah, this should be, I wouldn't be surprised if this ends up being like the Raiders Viking games where it's like 3-0. And that what ultimately wins this matchup. But it should be a pretty interesting game. And like I said, I'm scared of the Raiders right now. So I'm scared of my picks. Tune into this one. It should be a defensive masterclass.
And in that case, you're saying to start both of these defenses, and then you think it'll.
I do think these defenses should both be okay starts. And I say this because I think especially the Raiders, I still think the Colts are gonna somehow pull this one off, but I really do think the Raiders will get their fair share of turnovers and sacks.
Yeah. Yeah, they have a lot of upside to get touchdowns on defense for sure. Just their secondary right now is playing really good with Max Crosby pass rush. But we'll go on to the next one. The 4-11 Patriots are going to go into Buffalo and play the 9-6 Bills. We're 13-point home favorites, and Patriots are coming off a good win on Sunday Night Football against the Broncos. Bailey Zappi was kind of dealing ever since he fumbled on the very first play of the game, and the Broncos recovered it. He kind of was perfect ever since. He had looked a lot better these last few starts. He went into Pittsburgh, beat the Steelers. He's honestly been a pretty competent quarterback. I haven't been anything far from disappointed from him while I'm watching him for sure. So impressive from Bailey Zappi. Respect to the Patriots for still playing really hard, even though they're kind of in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes. And the Bills, who were looking like the hottest team in football before going into LA last week and squeaking out a win against Gift Smith's Chargers. So I I am not confident saying this, but the Bills will win this game in Buffalo. They have to win there to, have a chance at the playoffs still. And the Patriots are tanking. It'll be somewhat competitive. I don't think the Bills are going to put a beat down on them or anything. I think it'll be, like a 20-28 game. I do think Bill has these Patriots playing really hard. Their defense is playing hard, and it'll give Josh some type of problems, but they'll come away with the win. They have too much weapons. James Cook will come away with some big plays in the end.
Yeah, this line actually kind of seems kind of crazy to me, honestly. I do not feel like they're gonna win by 13 points by any means. With what they just put up last week, and it is a divisional game, and divisional games are always, closer than what you'd expect. And yeah, I mean, Bill Belichick, maybe he might ruin the tank. Maybe he knows he's not going to be back in New England, and maybe that's why last week he's like, screw it. I'm going to make sure you don't get Drake May or Caleb Williams. So maybe he knows he's not going back to New England, and he's going to try and ruin the tank these last couple weeks. So who knows? Who knows? They're going to play tough against Josh Allen. This defense, Christian Barmore, they're gonna make Josh Allen feel uncomfortable. And I think Josh Allen, I think it's safe to say that he might, I think he might be a lock for a pick in this one. I'm just gonna throw that out right now. But however, I am gonna ultimately choose the Bills because it is Josh Allen versus Bailey Zappi, and that's gonna be the difference in this one. Josh Allen's of course gonna put up more points. He's even if he throws 3 picks, he will still find a way to win in this one. But it should be actually a really close game. And from a fantasy aspect, this Bills team scares me, man. That's all I'm gonna say. This offense for the Bills, it scares me, and I don't even know who you want to start on a week-to-week basis because Stephon Diggs has not been good. Dalton Kincaid has not been good. You don't. I mean, is it just James Cook? I mean, that's like the only guy you can honestly feel confident. Obviously, you have to start Stephon Diggs, but he's been bad.
You're starting Stephon Diggs, knowing damn well he's scoring 4 to 6 points max. And like you said, Josh Allen will throw a pick. That's a good. He take his over if there is an underdog line on that because he will throw at least one pick, 100,000%. I know for an absolute fact. If I know anything, he will throw a pick in this game. But I think the other option is if you're one of the teams that's playing a juggernaut in your Super Bowl matchup of your fantasy football playoffs, I would consider starting Gabe Davis. You need the upside. I would consider starting a guy like Gabe Davis if you are projected like 20, 30 points down, I really would just shoot for the upside and start Gabe Davis in that scenario. And yeah, James Cook is a must start. And for the Patriots, it's just Zeke and then pop Demario Douglas is a good flex option.
Yeah, you just said it perfectly, and oh gosh, this could be one that make or break your fantasy championship, depending on who you're starting in this game.
Yeah. And last thing is Hunter Henry is a start if you're kind of screwed over. If you had TJ Hawkinson, I do think Hunter Henry will be a good start moving forward, really, with Zappy. And we'll go on to the next one. The 11-4 49ers are going to go in Washington and play the 4-11 Commanders. The Niners are 13-point road favorites. And this one's going to be Jacoby Brissett. Finally, I've been screaming for Jacoby Brissett to come in since week 3 for the Commanders. And finally, they're starting to see that literally Sam Howell is the worst quarterback in the NFL. It is crazy how bad that team is with him. Like once Jacoby Brissett gets inserted into the lineup, they're instantly competent and they can put up points. And Sam Howell might be the worst quarterback in the NFL. It's pretty incredible. I think if the Commanders with Sam Howell went into Carolina and played the Panthers, I think the Panthers put a beat down on them. So yeah, I'm happy they finally made the switch. It took way too long. Fireably long. Like it took way, way too long. Ron Rivera shouldn't be a head coach anymore. But the Niners coming off a loss, they're going to be pissed off. They're going to come into Washington and put a beat down. Even if it's Jacoby Brissett, he's competent. He'll put up some touchdowns, but the Niners will put up a lot more. Whether it's Darnold or Purdy, it's going to be Purdy. Obviously, I'm kidding, but yeah, expect the Niners to kind of be pissed off and dominant.
Yeah, I don't know if there's too much to take away from this game besides it should be utterly domination from this 49ers team. Obviously, Jacoby Brissett will have the Commanders playing a lot more competent and competitive. Ultimately, this 49ers roster is so much more talented and their defense is so much better. So it should be a beatdown. It should be a beatdown for sure. And from a fantasy aspect, I think I think you're feeling, decently confident. Are you feeling decently confident back in these Commanders wide receivers? I don't know. I guess me personally, I have Terry McLaurin in a lot of leagues, and I don't even know how I feel about him.
Jacoby Brissett changes the world. You can start Terry McLaurin like confidently. I would say personally, I would confidently start Terry McLaurin with Jacoby Brissett in there. I would almost guarantee a touchdown. They're going to be down all game. They're going to be throwing the hell out of the ball. I would definitely start Terry McLaurin. I would probably start the Redskins running back, whoever it is, Chris Rodriguez, Brian Robinson, if he does play. He's been out for a while now, but yeah, I think that's it for the Redskins. I'm not really messing with the Curtis Samuel type options though. And then for the Niners, like, we're not talking about it. You start everyone, obviously.
Oh yeah, preach to the choir. And are we locking this one as our bloody murder game of the week, or are we gonna go with a different one?
Yeah, we'll lock in Nick Bosa as our Michael Myers of the week. He's going to be Michael Myers and this whole Redskins team. So yeah, Michael Myers, bloody murder game of the week.
There we go. Log it in, baby. Log it in.
Lock it in, and we'll get on to the next one. The 7-8 Falcons are going to go into Chicago and play the 6-9 Bears, who are 3-point home favorites. And is this Justin Fields' tryout to be a Falcon next year? He grew up over in the area of Atlanta. It could be fun. What do you think?
Um, I would absolutely love that actually. Georgia, if you ever watched what was that quarterback show on Netflix called where Justin Fields
QB1 or something?
Yeah, I think it's called QB1 with Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence on it. And yeah, he's a Georgia boy. And he ultimately started his college career at Georgia before they kind of gave him the cold shoulder and he went to Ohio State. But yeah, maybe this could be a trial game. I would absolutely love that. He might be a perfect fit for the Falcons. I never even thought of that, but I absolutely love that. And that all of a sudden got me really excited, Dan. So yes, maybe this could be. And if Caleb Williams ends up going to the Bears, why not? Why not throw, whatever. I mean, it's probably not going to require much. I would assume at this point might be a second or a third. I don't think it'd be a first round pick for Justin Fields, who I think is well worth it and has tons of upside. So why not? Why not? And with that being said, give me the Bears. I'm feeling confident in Justin Fields right now. He's playing good football. This Bears team, this whole defense are kind of a cohesive unit right now, and they're playing really good football. And yeah, I'm riding with them. I like them a lot more than this Falcons team, especially the Falcons staff. I hate the Falcons entire staff. And yeah, give me Justin Fields and the Bears in this one. Easy.
This one's like such a coin flip for me. I really struggle to choose. The Falcons did dominate the Colts last week, who were pretty good. They really dominated the Colts. So Taylor Heineke does make the Falcons a lot better. If Ritter was in this one, he would probably turn it over like 6 times, and I wouldn't even hesitate with the Bears. But it is going to be a really close game. It's almost impossible to pick. I don't know. The Bears have the number one defense against the run right now, though, and I think that's the difference here because Arthur Smith loves spamming the run game, spamming the run. The Bears are number one against the run, which is incredibly crazy to say with how their season started. So I do think that's a difference here. I'm going to go with that. I'm going to go with the home field. I'm going to go with Fields and his Falcons tryout. So I'm going to take the Bears at home in a squeaker. I no confidence in it, but it'll be a good game. And for fantasy, you are starting Bijan. He's so talented. You just have to start Bijan. Sadly, even though it's scary, he's splitting a three-way backfield with a guy named Cordell Patterson, who's a kick returner. It's crazy. Arthur Smith. I mean, that's kind of why I'm picking the Bears too. Is just Arthur Smith has to surely things have to come into place for Arthur Smith to be fired. It's just he's not meant to be an NFL head coach. So I will pick the Bears. Arthur Smith isn't competent enough to have. I don't think you're starting Drake London or Kyle Pitts because of Arthur Smith, but I don't know if you're more ballsy than me, then you can do that. And for the Bears, you start Fields, you start DJ Moore. Obviously, Cole Kmet is like a star tight end, which is big for the Bears moving forward. They don't have to worry about drafting a new tight end. They have a really star and Cole Kmet. So yeah, good for the Bears, and I think that's it for fantasy.
Yeah, that's pretty much it from a fantasy aspect. Their running backs are definitely way too suspect to ever start. You never know which one's going to be the RB1 that week. So yeah, you said that perfectly. And let's start that train. Justin Fields to Atlanta. I absolutely love it.
Yep, 100%. And if there is no Deontay Foreman, you can start Khalil Herbert as we saw last week. But if they're all three there, you don't start any of the running backs. And we'll go on to the next one. The 5-10 Titans are going to go into Houston and play the 8-7 Texans, who are 5-point favorites. And that line indicates that our savior, our king, CJ Stroud, is finally back after 2 weeks of a concussion. He's finally back, and we get to watch him hopefully score off against Will Levis, who's also a little bit banged up, but he was at practice yesterday. He looked fine. So really excited to see these two rookies square off. We were kind of robbed of it when Case Keenum went into Tennessee last time. So really excited to see this matchup. I'm just going to get my pick out of the way. I would take Stroud's over in his first game back, and I would just expect him to put up a lot of passing yards. And I do think the Texans kind of put up a pretty good offensive performance in this one. And I think the Texans kind of get theirs with the Titans being out of things and the Texans needing to win to make the playoffs.
Yeah, easy pick. Texans all the way. CJ Stroud, revenge game, in the sense of he's back. He's hungry, man. He's got to get his team back into the playoffs. He's been out 2 weeks with that concussion. So CJ Stroud, take his over. He should be airing the ball down the field. And yeah, I really think the Texans should honestly handle this one with ease.
100%. When you go into fantasy takeaways, I think you could start Devin Singletary. It's exciting getting CJ Stroud back. For all this Texans options, I would start Singletary confidently. I'd start Nico Collins confidently. I would start Dalton Schultz confidently. I would start Noah Brown confidently in a 12-team league in the flex. I really would. With CJ Stroud in there, with no Tank Dell, I would honestly start Noah Brown. So I would start pretty much every Texan and be excited about it. And for the Titans, it's Derrick Henry, who you're not excited about in this matchup because they could be down big and playing Tyjae Spears the whole game. And I wouldn't start anyone else. I'm not touching DeAndre Hopkins anymore. I mean, Will Levis, you could touch Hopkins. He might score in this revenge game, against his old team. Maybe you start Hopkins if you're really, really down bad.
Yeah, I agree. Hopkins is a dart throw for sure. You never know what his fantasy input's going to be week to week. Obviously, if Ryan Tannehill's playing, you don't even consider it. But yeah, with Will Levis, he kind of seems to like to throw to DeAndre Hopkins. So he's definitely a dart throw in this one. And then the rest of the fantasy, you sum that up perfectly.
With that, we'll go on to the next one. The 3-12 Cardinals are going to go into Philly and play the 11-4 Eagles. We're 10.5-point favorites. And speaking of revenge games, it's the Jonathan Gannon revenge game. And speaking of Jonathan Gannon, let's just talk about Nick Sirianni because I did want to go on a little Nick Sirianni rant. I don't know what he does for the Eagles. Like the more I think about it, he really has just been getting carried by his assistant coaches who all turn out to be really good NFL head coaches. Shane Steichen, Jonathan Gannon, who really has been surprisingly a really good head coach. Brian Johnson's a top head coach candidate, and his defense is terrible now. And I genuinely like, is Sirianni an offensive guy? Is he a defensive guy? Is he just there to hype up the players? I feel like Sirianni's a head coach just because he had like a Philly vibe and he fits Philly good and he hypes up the players. But yeah, other than that, Sirianni isn't a great head coach. So I do need him to prove something, and that's kind of my rant for this one. But that being said, the Eagles will obviously win.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm not really sure. And it's like Howie Roseman's an incredible GM. So it just kind of seems like everything around him, and he was kind of given an incredible team. And yeah, he had an incredible coaching staff, and you kind of saw that the last couple of years. So yeah, Sirianni is weird. I don't really know how to feel about him. I guess we need to fill out the playoffs and how they perform in the playoffs. But yeah, ultimately, that saying, this should also be another possibly second bloody murder game of the week. Give me the Eagles all day long. It should be a beatdown.
Hot take. It might not be a bloody murder, though. I could see Kyler going in there and competing. I could see the Cardinals defense really competing with Jonathan Gannon. I could honestly see this being somewhat of a squeaker in this revenge game. But yeah, you have to pick the Eagles. And moving into fantasy, you're insanely excited about James Conner right now for the Cardinals. He had 5 targets in the receiving game last week. As we saw, that it translates to success. Whenever you target James Conner in the receiving game, it always translates to success. A player as good as he is. So you're really excited about James Conner. Trey McBride kind of had his first meh week, but you kind of start Trey McBride still, even in the flex. I'm not really mad about starting Trey McBride. He's just awesome for Kyler, and you can start Kyler, especially in this matchup. The Eagles have the worst secondary I've ever seen in my life, so I would start those 3, and then for the Eagles, it's Hurts, Swift, Devontae, AJ, and Dallas. I think you're starting every single Eagle.
Yeah, 100% agree. And yeah, now that you said, the Nick Sirianni stuff and then Jonathan Gannon, it actually, I totally take away that bloody murder. It should actually be a fairly good game. And it'll be interesting to see how Jonathan Gannon, schemes, his defense and everything around Nick Sirianni. So it should be pretty fun.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they can cover that 10.5-point line. I really don't know if they can, but we'll go on to the next one. The 8-7 Rams are going to go into New York and play the 5-10 Giants, who are 5.5-point underdogs at home. And let's just talk about Stafford right now. I guess we'll get out of the way that Tyrod Taylor is playing, so Tommy DeVito does get benched. Heartbreaking for a fan favorite, but let's be real, Tyrod Taylor's definitely makes the Giants more competitive. He's probably the best option. But yeah, DeVito wasn't playing bad football or anything. Tyrod's just been there. He's a solid, serviceable option. But let's talk about Stafford because he is just playing in structure and rhythm right now. He's playing some fantastic football, like top five quarterback this season, and literally no one's talking about it. He's kind of the guy that no one's been talking about. He could be in the MVP race, and he isn't even close to the MVP race because just no one's watching the Rams apparently. But I'll get my hot take out of the week. I think the Rams are going to the Super Bowl, man. I think the Rams are like that good of a football team. I think they
Wow.
easily just beat the Lions in the playoffs, maybe beat the Cowboys and knock that off and get to the Super Bowl. I really do think that they're playing that good. Sean McVay and Stafford are playing that good of football. It reminds me of their Super Bowl run a few years ago. So I love the Rams. I'll get my pick out of the way. I love the Rams. I'm high on the Rams. I think that they're electric right now and they're just playing some great football and I'm loving it. I'm riding the Flames.
Yeah, that's wow. That's a hot take right there. That's crazy. But yeah, they are playing absolutely insane. Sean McVay just has this team clicking, and it is kind of to your point. I mean, these undrafted late round picks have all just hit for the Rams. It's pretty incredible, and these guys seem to play the hardest because they got the most to play for. They got to earn contracts. They got to stay in the NFL. So I mean, this team is just kind of clicking, and they're playing for Sean McVay, and they're playing well. So yeah, they're far, far, far above expectation, and it's really impressive at this point. But yeah, that is a hot take. That's got to cool down after that hot take. That's wild to me, but I love it. I love a good hot take. And yeah, obviously you're rolling with the Rams in this one. I think they come in here and not that their team on paper is that much better, but they are that much better coach and they are playing that much better. So yeah, this is an easy Rams pick for me.
And moving into fantasy, you start Saquon. Obviously, Saquon's the one start for the Giants. Darren Waller showed that he's not really he's washed last week. He every single target until the last drive of the game was incomplete. Targeted to Waller, he just isn't the same football player, sadly. And for the Rams, you like I said, you kind of ride the Flames. You're really excited about everyone. You start Stafford, who's been a top quarterback in fantasy recently. You start Kyron, who's like RB2 in the NFL right now, and you start Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, obviously. So it's really fun. And I think Demarcus Robinson is a dart throw. If you're, in a deep, deep league, I think Demarcus Robinson, who has like 3 touchdowns in a row, I think he could be a dart throw as well.
Yeah, Stafford targets his dudes, and if Marcus Robinson's been his dude, he's going to target him. He only completed passes to 4 different receivers last week, and so you love that. You love that he hyper targets his favorite players, and so yeah, I think he's a good dart throw. And then yeah, obviously the core dudes, it's start it and forget it. And if you have Kyron Williams, you're in the championship. Or Puka, you're definitely in the championship. I mean, you're not. That's crazy.
Right. And I am gonna lock this one in as my ass beating of the week. I do think the Rams go in there and kind of make a statement. So I'll lock that one in and we'll go on to the next one. The 2-13 Panthers are gonna go into Jacksonville and put the 8-7 Jaguars. We're 6.5 point favorites, and we're not entirely positive as to if Trevor is playing at this point. It looks like he should be playing. If not, it's gonna be CJ Beathard who threw 2 touchdowns last week. So either way, Trevor's not playing great football right now. So, I mean, what if I told you that the Panthers were kind of playing better football than the Jaguars currently? They're looking like a better football team. Bryce Young might be looking like the better quarterback than Trevor Lawrence currently. Like the Panthers are playing decent football. They're moving the ball on offense, and their defense has really stepped up to look like a competent unit. So I don't know if CJ Beathard's playing in this one, give me the Panthers. I guess if Trevor plays, the Jaguars have to win to even be in the playoff race. So I'll get my pick out of the way. If Trevor plays, I'll pick the Jags, and if Beathard plays, I'm picking Bryce Young's Panthers because Bryce Young's playing some really good football recently. He has no time to throw. He's just running around. He's making accurate throws on the run. He's over the middle of the field. I love what I'm seeing from Bryce Young, and I'm really optimistic for the future. But yeah,
Yeah, Jaguars are just kind of gross football team right now, and they're playing a gross football. That's a gross football team that's been gross all year. And it kind of just seems like the Panthers could sneakily upset them in this one. Uh, However, I think the Jaguars just have too much to play for, so I'll get my pick out of the way. I am going to ultimately go with the Jaguars no matter what, just because there's too much on the line for them. Um, and the Panthers are kind of in tank, even though they're playing competitive football, they're still in tank mode. But yeah, it should be a pretty good one. And honestly, I don't care who starts for the Jaguars, whether it's Beathard or Lawrence. I think Lawrence is playing some pretty reckless football right now, and he has been bad. He's actually just been quite frankly awful. Trevor Lawrence has been terrible, and he needs to kind of reset his something. Something needs to be reset with Trevor Lawrence because he's playing honestly a horrible brand of football.
It would be smartest to sit him in this specific matchup if you're confident enough that you can win with Beathard because he clearly isn't fully healthy. That's like the one thing but why I'm not like roasting his quarterback plays. He's playing terrible, but he's definitely not playing healthy. So it's hard to really gauge what's going on. But yeah, the Jaguars are just not a good football team right now. He's playing gross football. When you go into fantasy, I think Calvin Ridley's a start either way. You saw CJ Beathard throw 2 touchdowns to him last week. I think Ridley's a start. I think Etienne and Ingram are both locks, but you're not really messing around with anyone else with the Jaguars and for the Panthers. It's Chuba and Thielen. You're actually excited about those two though because Bryce is playing good football.
Yeah, no, 100%. You just summed that up perfectly. This might be my toilet bowl game of the week.
Yeah, definitely with the way the Jaguars are playing. Toilet bowl game of the week. We'll lock it in and we'll go to the next one. The 8-7 Steelers are going to go into Seattle and play the 8-7 Seahawks for a 3.5 point home favorites. A lot of implications in each team's respective conference for the playoff race. So this is a really good matchup, a big matchup, big stakes. You got Mason Rudolph starting it for a second straight week. He did a good job getting it out to George Pickens last week, that's for sure. I wouldn't say it was really Rudolph that boosted the team, but yeah, getting it to George Pickens really boosted that Steelers team. It kind of had them playing really hard and pumped up against the Bengals. So it's fun seeing that. It's fun seeing Joey Porter Jr. being locked down. Patrick Peterson still playing good. They moved him to safety and he made a pick. So yeah, fun to see what the Steelers are doing. And for the Seahawks, they kind of are coming off a gross win against the Titans. It was way too close, way closer than it should have been. But they also have to win. I still don't know who to pick in this one. This is like the one that I just cannot decide.
I just can't confidently, honestly, roll with Mason Rudolph and the Steelers and say I really think they're going to beat a Seahawks team. So I'll get my pick out of the way if that makes it easy for you. I'm riding with the Seahawks. I kind of think last week was a little bit of an anomaly. George Pickens definitely had his, and he ate in that game. But I think they'll definitely regress to the mean this week, and I see the Seahawks as just a better football team and with enough weapons to ultimately come in here and outplay the Steelers. But it should be a pretty good, from a coaching standpoint. You got Mike Tomlin versus Pete Carroll, two OG dogs going at it. So it should be a pretty fun game from a coaching standpoint. But ultimately, I got to ride with the Seahawks. They are the better team in my opinion.
No, you're right. You said that well. I can't be taking Mason Rudolph over Geno. I am going to pick the Seahawks at home. 12th man will be going crazy in this big game. It's going to be a close one. It's going to be competitive. Both teams really have to play hard. Both defenses will be playing hard. But yeah, I am going to pick the Seahawks. You kind of have to. When you go into fantasy, you start Najee with no confidence at all. I guess if you're down bad at running back, and then I think George Pickens is the only other start for the Steelers, just because of last week. You kind of have to ride the flames, hope that he targets George Pickens deep a few times against the Seahawks secondary. Other than that, I'm not really messing with Deontay or Pat with Mason Rudolph out there. And then for the Seahawks, I do think you can start all three Seahawks receivers in this matchup. I think you can start DK, Jackson Smith, and Jigba and Lockett. After last week, they all did pretty good. I really would start them. Not really expecting too much of upside. Maybe Smith and Jigba and DK can score a touchdown. But yeah, I would start those three. I would start Kenneth Walker. They're really running their offense through Kenneth Walker recently. So you're loving that usage and volume. You have to start Kenneth Walker in your playoffs too. So I think that's it.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. I love that. I think the Seahawks trio will eat from the wide receiver standpoint. So I really like that you pointed that out, and I 100% agree. I think you start all three of them, and I think you feel really good about it.
Yeah, I don't think we've really been saying that all year. This might be the first time we've said to start all three of the Seahawks receivers. But yeah, I do think the Seahawks come away with this one at home, and we'll go on to the next one. The 8-7 Bengals are going to go into Kansas City and play the 9-6 sloppy Chiefs. The sloppy Chiefs are 7 point home favorites, and I don't know, man. The Chiefs have just been exposed week by week in multiple different ways. They're not going to make it far in the playoffs. Like I'll just start it off with something depressing for Chiefs fans. The Chiefs aren't going to make it far in the playoffs. They're getting exposed weekly in multiple different ways. Their team is getting like picked apart and their offense is just so bland. It seems like every single defense at this point can handle their offense. The Raiders, the Broncos, the Broncos aren't really looking like a good defense against Bailey Zappi last week. So I don't know. I just think the Chiefs are meh, bland, and they're not the same Chiefs team. And the Bengals coming off a pretty gross loss to Mason Rudolph, they can't be too excited about. Jake Browning was playing really good before that game. That was his first stinker performance for sure. We don't know if Jamar Chase is in this one. He probably won't be. That might make me just pick the Chiefs, just be with no confidence at all. I guess yeah, I'll get my pick out of the way. I will pick the Chiefs with zero confidence at all. I was just pooping on them, but I wouldn't be surprised either way. I'll go with the home team, and the Chiefs kind of have to win to shut up the haters like me.
Yeah, you know what? You said that perfectly. That's exactly what I was gonna say. I'm gonna pick the Chiefs ultimately in this one with no confidence. I kind of feel like their franchise is just kind of falling apart. I feel like Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce are absolute head cases right now. They don't know how to act or how to be leaders when they're not winning. And they're just kind of they just seems like they're all kind of just crumbling apart. It just seems like the building's going down on them right now. And I pick them with no confidence in this because I could really see Jake Browning going out there and having one of his 300-yard games and just dealing against this Chiefs team. But I ultimately think whatever Chiefs, voodoo magic, they'll somehow pull this one out. But yeah, I do think this Chiefs, this team is kind of falling apart.
Yeah, it's really just it's gross. Like yeah, Travis Kelsey's clearly not the same player. It's kind of depressing watching. It's just kind of a weird dynamic because he's got all this fame, all this Taylor Swift fame coming at him, but it's at the worst possible time because he is really declining visually. Like this is the first time we've visually seen him decline week by week. He looks slower out there. It is pretty sad. Patrick Mahomes clearly isn't co as confident with, Travis Kelsey not being like a star wide receiver one type of player. So it's just meh. When you go into fantasy takeaways, you start, but that being said, you start Mahomes and Kelsey not confidently at all. You don't really expect too high of an upside. Mahomes' upside is like 22 fantasy points at this point, and what's Travis Kelsey's upside? 15 if he scores a touchdown. It's some bad football the Chiefs are playing. It's gross. If Pacheco plays, I don't think Pacheco's playing, so I guess you could start Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He might be the only running back in the backfield. Watch Pacheco's injury. Or sorry, watch McKinnon's injury. Their whole running back room is injured. It
I
might
think McKinnon's actually on IR.
yeah, okay. So it
Yeah,
literally might
yeah,
just be
McKinnon's out.
CEH.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So start CEH for sure. He'll get a big workload if Pacheco doesn't go. And then for the Bengals, you start T. Higgins, you start Joe Mixon. You don't start Browning. I don't think you start Boyd in this one. I think that's it.
Yeah, you sum that up perfectly. And I really, really wanted to pick the Bengals, but I physically can't. But I really think they could do something in this, even though this is a must win for the Chiefs. I could see the Bengals squeaking this out, but I just ultimately am not brave enough to pick them yet.
All right, we're riding with the sloppy Chiefs, and we'll go on to the next one. The 5-10 Chargers are going to go into Denver and play the 7-8 Broncos, who are 3.5 point favorites, and that line has gone down a few points since the news of Russell Wilson being benched. Just kind of sounds crazy to say after the year he's had, the seventh highest passer rating in the NFL. He's being benched for Jarrett Stidham because there's just weird vibes going on with Sean Payton and Russ kind of all season. There's been a weird dynamic with them. They have like little subtle beef on the sidelines. It's been weird reports coming out that they asked him to take a pay cut after beating the Chiefs weeks ago when they started their big win streak. So they really handled Russ terribly. I'm going to blame the Broncos and Sean Payton on that one. They definitely just handled this whole situation terribly. Russell wasn't playing bad. The Broncos aren't even mathematically eliminated. I can't even really make sense to why he was benched. I get the money aspect of things, but you already, you know, paid him your whole future, your whole farm of money. So I don't know. The benching doesn't make any sense. What do you think of it?
I don't understand it at all. And I mean, when you kind of control your own destiny. You win out, you probably make the playoffs at this point. If you win out as the Broncos, I think there's a good enough chance with everything that could happen that you could squeak into a wild card spot. And so I don't really understand why you just all of a sudden change your season. I get that it was a brutal loss to the Patriots and there's been some beef, and that was kind of their excuse to bench Russ. But yeah, it just doesn't seem like the Broncos organization likes Russ, and that's kind of what I take away. They do not like Russ. There's some beef going on, and maybe it's because Russ he had a little too much power in this organization. And I mean, Sean Payton, it kind of seems like it's just like a power trip. And it seems like Sean Payton is ultimately winning that power trip because it's been clear all year that Sean Payton does not like Russell Wilson. It's clearly he didn't want Russell Wilson to be his quarterback, and now it just kind of seems like the Broncos are looking forward to the draft season and they're going to try and trade Russell. So maybe Michael Penix is a Bronco at this point. We'll see. I This is comes out of the blue, and I would not have expected this late in the season after Wilson's played good football. But this is a head scratcher, and you're trying to ruin the Chargers tank, and I don't appreciate that.
As a Broncos fan, I'm definitely like fumbling over my words on this because I genuinely can't really make too much sense of it. It still confuses the hell out of me. All reading the reports, I was just confused. It does seem like Sean Payton wants like his little project of Jarrett Stidham to work out really badly, and he just really wants it to happen, and he's just forcing it to happen against the Chargers and Raiders. We'll see. Jarrett Stidham, he lost 3 games for the Raiders last year. Since his rookie year, he hasn't really been a good quarterback. So I don't agree with the decision. Obviously Russell Wilson's a lot better of a quarterback than Jarrett Stidham. And on a bad day, Russ can go gain his 30 pounds that he lost in the offseason. He's probably still a better quarterback than Stidham. So yeah, it is a silly decision. It makes this game harder to pick. Like moving into the picks for this game, I don't know who I'm picking. I guess I'll have a caveat. I'll say I'll pick my Broncos if Sutton plays because of Michael Davis. I think Sutton maybe wins the game against Mikey Davis by himself. But if Sutton doesn't play, if it's Stidham and Jerry Jeudy and Marvin Mims show, I am going to pick the Chargers, who played pretty competent against the Bills. They played pretty hard. So my caveat is Sutton in this one, and I'm not confident about it at all. This is a gross one, man. I'm just it's a weird game.
Yeah, it's weird, and this whole thing has just been it feels weird. And the reason I'll get my pick. I'm gonna go with the Broncos, and I think it's because of Vance Joseph and the way they game planned against the Chargers a couple weeks ago. When they played and they were able to bring the house, and the Chargers and Kellen Moore just in week out just seem incompetent on how to game plan for a protection plan and how to pick up blitzes, because for some reason they just cannot get a game plan for picking up blitzes, and that's ultimately been their despise and downfall all season, and a lot of the reason they've lost a lot of games. And so I'll ride with the Broncos. I think their defense and their coaching staff is ultimately a lot better than the Chargers. And so that's what's going to be my pick in this one. But this is a weird feeling game, man, and I'm just scratching my head at this Russ news because it is just so weird.
Yeah, the Broncos being at home, like you said, their defense kind of kicked the hell out of the Chargers. They really had a good game plan a few weeks ago. So that is kind of why you have to pick the Broncos in this one, but you're not confident about it with Jarrett Stidham's first start in a while. And yeah, like moving into fantasy, like I said, if Sutton does play, I will give you a touchdown guarantee. He'll probably moss Mike Davis. If he doesn't play, are you throwing a dart at Marvin Mims? I don't think you start Judy regardless. Are you throwing a dart at Marvin Mims?
I I can't. I can't. I think there's probably better options that you can start. And yeah, I'm really not throwing a dart at Marvin Mims, especially in a big week like this. I'm not there yet.
I think you benched Javonte Williams, who honestly, like low key got benched by McLaughlin and P. Ryan last week, really quietly. No one's talking about it, but I'll say it quietly. I think he got benched last week, so don't start Javonte. He fell into the end zone last week. Good for him. But for the Chargers, I do think you start Keenan Allen. He always goes off against the Broncos. He'll get a crazy amount of volume, and Austin Eckler, he'll work his way into a decent fantasy performance. I think you just start those two, and that's it.
Yeah, 100% agree. And this is gonna be a weird game. It's gonna be weird. I tune into this one and see what the Broncos are really doing without Russ. So we'll see.
Weird vibes, as you guys could probably tell. It's just a confusing game, weird to talk about. Don't really know what's going to go on in this one, but we'll go on to the last game of the week. There's no Monday night football game this week. It's going to be played on Saturday night. So the 7-8 Packers are going to go into Minnesota and play the 7-8 Vikings, who are 2-point home favorites. Really big NFC North matchup, kind of winner makes playoffs. So yeah, really big implications in this one. Both defenses are kind of on the opposite end of things right now. Brian Flores is the Vikings defense rejuvenated, playing like a top unit in the NFL. Meanwhile, the Packers, let's get it out of the way. I think Joe Barry has the Packers playing as the worst defense in the entire NFL right now. I don't think you can find a worse defense currently at this current moment in time than the Packers. They are just playing terrible. Their assignments are all messed up. Joe Barry will be fired because of the performance against the Panthers, who Bryce Young was just shredding the Packers up. He was dicing them up, just going down the field every single possession. So I do kind of expect, no matter who the Vikings quarterback is, to get theirs on offense. And I do think Jordan Love and the Packers will get theirs. They've looked good on offense. They spread the ball around really nicely to all their weapons. They have a lot of good young weapons. But I'll get my pick out of the way. I think the Vikings win this one on Sunday night because they're just better on offense, way better on defense, and their coaching is better. We don't know who their quarterback is. That's kind of the one thing holding us back from it. It could be Jared Hall, could be Nick Mullins, could be Josh Dobbs. I'm gonna I'm gonna say it's gonna be Nick Mullins, but if it's Jared Hall, I might even be more confident in this W. So I think if it's Mullins or Hall, I'm gonna pick the Vikings.
Yeah, game is kind of gross, to be honest. Even though it's like still has some like relevancy, it's kind of a gross game. So I'm just gonna say that right now. This game kind of grosses me out. But to be honest, yeah, it's the Vikings all day long. This Packers team has fallen apart, kind of like the Chiefs have in the last couple weeks, and it's an easy Vikings pick for me. Even if they squeak this one out, it's gonna be the Vikings, and I'm not feeling confident in this Packers team. They kind of got to find their footing again, and they kind of lost their identity. And the Vikings are playing competitive football, so yeah, ultimately I'm going to roll with them.
Yeah, the Vikings were playing really, really competitive with the Lions if it wasn't for all of Mullins' picks. So, yeah, I do think if Hall is playing in this one, I think the Vikings kind of win it more handily because, less turnovers. I think Hall is just a good, serviceable, safe quarterback, which sounds crazy. He's the rookie. Nick Mullins is the long time tenured veteran, and he's the one playing YOLO ball, playing Jameis ball. So I do think Jaron Hall kind of gives the Vikings a better chance at winning, which no one really is talking about. But either way, I do think they kind of squeak it out. It will be a close game. The Packers have to play hard to have a playoff shot. But yeah, I think the Vikings have to win in this one. You have to pick them. And going into fantasy, Justin Jefferson's a must start. No TJ Hawkinson in this one kind of makes you want to start Jordan Addison, even though he had a terrible performance last week. I think you can start both receivers with no Hawkinson. I think you could start Ty Chandler. It's a lot better matchup than last week. I think Chandler's a decent matchup or a decent start. He's going to probably score. And then for the Packers, you start Aaron Jones, and I think that's it. You could throw a dart at Jordan Love, but I don't want to start any of the receivers. Maybe Jaden Reed, but they spread it around to like 6 different receivers. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think you can start Jaden Reed, and then the rest you summed it up pretty perfectly. I think if Jaden Reed is a go, you fire him up, and I think Jaden Reed is like a lock for a touchdown every week because he's just so solid. Um, but
I have one more question for you, actually. Do you think Tucker Kraft's a lock? So he's coming off of a 10-point performance, 15 points, and 10 points. Do you think Tucker Kraft's a start?
I think you can start Tucker Craft, especially if you were like one of those Dalton Kincaid owners or something. I think you can go out and you can grab Tucker Craft and actually feel okay about starting him. So yes, start Tucker Craft.
Yeah, I actually love Tucker Kraft. He's been really fun. He's been almost better than Luke Musgrave. So I'm really excited for that duo moving forward. And anything else you want to say in this one?
No, I'm ready to get to my exit hot take. I got a good one.
Oh, I'm interested to hear this. What is it?
My exit hot take for today is that Travis Kelce has become washed because of Taylor Swift and all the hype that they had around them in that relationship. It has washed Travis Kelce, and he's dog poop right now for being tight end one the last 10 years.
Yeah, it's just taken all of the good energy from him. He looks like a different person. He looks dead. Like watching his podcast, he just looks, like he's kind of exhausted. I don't know what it is. It might just be all the Taylor Swift fame and drama getting to him. So yeah, I do like that one. And my hot take of the week is the Rams are gonna make the Super Bowl. So yeah, thank you guys for tuning into another fun one. We're already in week 17. Absolutely crazy. Only one more of these. So yeah, hopefully you guys can win your guys' fantasy football championships. If you do, definitely be sure to comment, like, subscribe if you liked. And yeah, thanks for tuning in. Peace.
Peace. That's a hot take. I got to go get some water.
Cool down.